Hello guys, Stack here back with another video. Well, Supercoach 2023 gets very very close now. Wait, 2023. Ah shit, I don't know. Well, never mind. Supercoach 23 comes very very close. And as we know, this was my team previously. Still haven't changed much. I have been watching the games recently. I've been keeping up with the news, but I've just sat back, looked at a bit of the research, just looking at what other teams are doing, and I'm getting a pretty solid idea of where I want this team to head. So first and foremost, when we look at this team, you know, it's some of these picks are holding up and even got some merit over the preseason, but I will be making some changes just shortly. First and foremost, uh, intra-club matches. I don't know if many would have called them. You had their own KO and all that, but a very good person, a YouTuber named Klopp, made a very detailed, butchered it before I explain it. It was very very neat and lovely, and it just gave us an idea of who to watch out for in the preseason matches. Obviously, I added two names here, but over the days when I was watching it, I was just filling this out, having gone by eye test. Some supporters, might have some different ideas, but I'll quickly roll through it. So the Cats and Hawks game, that was the first one. Sicily was an easy tick. He's gonna be another gun. He'll be top six again this year. Will I start him? That's up for other people's interpretation, but he did go up the ground a bit. He looked like a captain. He was demanding the ball, but also he was trying to fill a spot up a bit more on the ground. He'll be a super pick again this year. No hating if you started him, but for me, I got someone else coming up. Weedle, I was really hoping to be a rookie this year. He looked reliable, but I don't think he just was outbodied by most forwards. He was just getting, he doesn't have that AFL level system smarts yet, so I'm happy to wait on him. I think he'll come good soon. He just needs a bit more time in the system to develop. And then we got Fergus Green. He's almost like he played well, especially against the defense of Geelong Cats. He should be getting games at the Hawks, and yeah, if you want it, he's a solid bench rookie. I wouldn't be putting him anywhere on field. He's bound to drop a 70 in 1 week, a 30. But if you need some cash on the bench, I think he'll be reliable. Now, if I haven't, I don't think I explained it. The green ticks mean someone I can see that I don't blame for you starting or trying to get anywhere in a year. Question marks are players I want to know a bit more about. Maybe I want to see a bit more of them next week, or you know, are they? I don't really have much faith in them. And then purple highlighted. That's just straight up a lock. I've locked him in my team. They're starting this year. I've seen enough to I've seen enough to say they're starting. And then lastly, the red cross has just names, not even necessarily bad players, just names I don't see relevant in Supercoach, which unfortunately falls on my Clark here because I don't know how he gets in the best 22 of Geelong Cats. And then that goes to Bose. From the eye test, Bose, he was playing well. He had some mid time in the second quarter. He looks like he's just flown straight into the Cats system. He does present a risk of being that sub as he is pretty versatile, but I think I saw enough in his game to justify, he got taken off after the second quarter, but I think that's just more just precautionary because he has that shoulder. I think they saw enough from him, and I think he is in Cat's plans this year, so anyone hoping to own Bose will be very, very excited. And then this next pick, the next one I've ticked, Radaglia. Boy, oh boy, Radaglia. He looked he looks like he's got his spot down there with Jack Henry getting injured. I I can definitely see Radaglia being a pretty good pick. Now depending on whether you put him on F6 or you put him R2, I'll go to that a bit later in the team, but I think R2 could actually be reasonable if he has another performance like that next week, and he will go from a green tick to a purple lock. Other ones, Bruin and Holmes. Obviously not going to put a tick here because I wouldn't put it there if they weren't relevant. But they've seemed to they had the bulk of the CBAs. Now Guthrie and Dangerfield were off at 3/4 time, but even then I think Bruin was the majority of CBAs for all the way from the first till the fourth quarter, and then Holmes was getting a good chunk. Both of these picks look pretty good. I've got them here as I now want to watch them next week. especially with Bruin who has forward and mid, and he is a contested type player. If he has that role again next week in a side that will have Duncan, Dangerfield, Guthrie, and all that, and Atkins, if all those guys are playing and Bruin's still getting the bulk of the CBAs, I think he could be a very reasonable forward at 312k. So yeah, these ones are definitely to watch. And now let's go to the next game. We'll try and speed this up a bit. Parrish, oh boy, he looks like he's only getting better. He's in the contract year now. He probably wants to step it up a bit. Huge tick from me. Only reason I haven't put him in the lock is just because I got some other players that I need to attend to. Merritt, also huge tick. Probably just a little bit behind Parrish because he is most likely the tag target. And Parrish is just, in my eyes, a bit better of an accumulator and a bit better of an inside mid. And for Supercoach, that's what we really want. Ridley, he looked like he passed the eye test. I think he had a couple kickouts. He was definitely intercept marking, which is good signs. And I like the look of him, but there's just some other defenders at the 500k price line that I prefer over him. And even right now, my team structure that I want to change to, I don't have any 500k defenders at the moment. Redmond, I can kind of see it. He was there in the defense. He was taking kicks. He did look like the guy going for the nice 50s, like kind of like a Daniel Rich type. But just for me, no. I think there is better people for that price point. Davey, he definitely made a claim that game. He looked like a good small forward. Won't be the best scorer. Kind of like I guess like you can add Sheasel here. Won't be the best scorer. Probably the only difference is Sheasel's 190k and Davies 117. Rather just take him and hope he makes 150k. Anderson and Witts, I'll give him the tick. They both passed the eye test, but nothing to write home about. I'm not sold on Witts as a pick right now, just because I don't want to pay 600k for someone who I view as 100k average. Oh no, 100 average. He will most likely play old 22, but I just don't see it in him to go be a real top two ruckman. And I'll come back. I can come back to this later because I'm gonna edit my rucks in a second. Ben Long, Flanders. Ben Long just he had that role, but he just didn't perform really well in it. I don't know if Gold Coast want to stick with him, but that's up to Gold Coast. So I'll just leave it as a question. And his price point's pretty ugly as well for that role. Or in Supercoach, so I'm just happy to skip out on him. Flanders, geez, he played well. He looked like he wanted to be part of this team. I think he isn't Gold Coast best 22, but he's not touching that midfield. They didn't have Took Miller in that game, and he still didn't get a single CBA. He got a bit around the ground, but no, it's just a no for me. In preseason games, just so you're clear, preseason games with your premiums and not so much in mid prices, but more your premiums, you don't even judge them on how they go on the day. Most preseason games, they kind of put in 50% effort. All you really want to see is the role. And this comes back to the mid prices. He's put in a lot of effort. He's looked really good. But that role was just shocking. And for that reason, he's just become a question mark for me. I haven't crossed him out like other players. But he's just got some question marks over his head. Can he even get the role he wants? The role we think he can now score well in. But we don't know. And we'll have to wait. Constable, as a Geelong supporter seeing this guy, I just don't think he's the best kicker. I don't think he's a really good kick. He's an accumulator, so I could see him he could be quick points, but yeah, Gold Coast, they gave him kickouts. And he played on all four of them, I'm pretty sure, so personally, in my eyes, I don't see much in him, but from the Gold Coast players' point of view, and supporters, apparently they don't mind him, so for 123k, someone's taking kickouts, you can't go wrong. It's giving him the green tick. He's no lock because I think I could see him dropping out when Powell and Weller come back, but if you want a quick cash grab, he's probably it this year. Lock, Taranto, Hopper, no explanation needed. You're going to need him this year, or you're just going to be waiting until 2024. Lock him in and don't cry yourself to sleep. LDU, he looked exceptional. He is the number one mid under Alistair Clarkson. Only issue is, I think he will be under a lot of tag pressure. And North Melbourne have a stretch where they have. Let's quickly pull it up just to make sure, because he is someone I've been trying to play my team around. but at the moment I'm happy to leave him as an upgrade target. One, because he shares a buy with some players I'm going to get, and two, if we have a look at his run, he's got some tough midfield opposition. Fremantle, he might get the tag by McGuinness. He's got West Coast to start off with, but he's going to cop probably a tag from McGuinness, and that's at round 3 as well, so that's when price changes start to come in. Then he's got Carlton and Brisbane and Gold Coast and Melbourne, and you feel bad for this poor bugger. St Kilda's maybe a game he gets up in. Port Adelaide he should do well. Then he's got Sydney. It's like, oh, there's that stretch there. It's just a very ugly stretch of games. Some of these softer teams like Richmond he done well against, but Richmond does genuinely leak a lot of points to midfielders. They're a great team and they just play a lot of chaos footy, and that really flourishes for our Supercoach midfielders. But he doesn't have that till round 23, so I could see him as an upgrade target. It's just his fixture is just so horrendous. He's gonna have a tough time, so he's sadly fallen out of contention. But yeah, if you're an LDU fan, huge tick. He looks well. He looks good. Definitely want him in my team some point this year. Zeeb or Cunnington quickly, pretty stiff, but I'm not gonna pay 400k for someone that looks iffy to even get into that midfield. Zeeble had a little bit of a defensive role. He was like that leader back there, but he just doesn't look to be the same scoring pig as 2021. He's not moving all the plays. That's Logan McDonald now. He's just very at risk of not being best 22, and for that reason I don't want to pay 300k for him. I could see him probably averaging 90 if he just stays in that defense and he does have the freedom to still do a bit of kicking like he did in that match, but I just don't see it. So at that moment I got the question mark. Will Phillips, 158k, has that midfield role. I don't think he can go much wrong. Goda, yeah, he done some good things. He had a bit of a wing role. He just got lost in the game really on the wing. Wings are pretty much a hard spot for rookies, so I think he'll get a game. He's just got a question mark at the moment, but it's a bit much to ask for 198k. Now Combin, I like him. He's gonna be another bench rookie like Fergus Green. If you need any of these two, it's more than acceptable. Now Doherty, he didn't do much. He didn't do much at practice game. Sorry, just a quick drink. He didn't do much at practice game, but he passed the role test. He did have a bit of midfield minutes. He did have a bit of halfback, but there's no point to lock him in over a Stewart or a Sicily or even like a Dawson coming up. He's just on the older age spectrum now, and yeah, I'd just rather not worry about it. He could be an upgrade target later in the year, but I don't see him having a hot start. He looked a bit lost in that midfield role. He didn't really kick off. Didn't look like he was getting much clearances, so leave it for another week, but still he's a tick. He will be top 6, but I'm happy to wait later in the year. Same as Cripps, should probably be a top 8 mid, but he did have a slight ankle tweak, and there was a bit of concern Colin would look like they were starting to speed on him a little bit because all he had was Hewitt, but we'll wait and see. Gonna have to start speeding this up. This video is gonna be too long. Sard, yeah, nah, I'm happy. Giving the question mark. Actually, I might even just give him the red. Apologies, any Carlton fans, but I just don't see it. He can get it, but the one thing Stewart and Doherty and Dawson have over Sard is the fact they're not a small defender. They can actually intercept, and he doesn't take much intercepts. That's not a part of his scoring kit. And for that reason, I'd rather just spend an extra 40k on Stewart, Sicily, Dawson, or Doherty. People who can actually take intercept marks. Oliver Henry, geez, he's made a claim for round 1. He was really good. I think he kicked a goal. He had a go up good disposals, marks, and just done some good around the ground work. He's probably in contention for round 1. Cohen and Sonoda, similar things. They had their moments. They looked really well in the game. Both of them are looking to fill the hole of Z Williams. I don't know which one it is yet. That's up to Carlton to decide, but wait and see. Nick Dacos, yeah, played defense and mid. He will. I do want him in my point. I do want to start him, but 500k in the defense this year is a bit since I've already locked in Stewart, so I'm happy to wait on him, and See how it goes, see how my structure plays out. But anyone doubting Dacos, nah, he's gonna be good again this year. Question of whether Supercoach he's gonna be top six. It's an iffy one, but he's got the perfect pick role. He's Collingwood's fan. He's Collingwood's poster boy. If you wanted him, I see no reason not to get him. Mitchell, oh, he had a bad role. He just looks sluggish, and you can't, like I said, you can't judge your primos on a preseason match that goes slow. But I just don't think his role was even that good. They'll put him to Goey and Crisp and Nick Dacos in over him. He still had some CBAs, but he just started at half forward on some of them. I don't think he's back to his Brownlow best. Like everyone was saying, he's gonna be the pig. He's a lock, but I believe that as well, and I just didn't see a pig in him like throughout that whole game. But he doesn't need to be 100% the whole game. He only has to put it in. He just has to show a little glimpse, and he didn't just show us no glimpses whatsoever. His just role looked very poor. And same for Cameron. I didn't catch much of Allen or Richards. I don't know if they played. If any Collingwood supporters know, be free. But so these three just didn't pass the eye test. Neil's Neil. If you want him, I recommend getting him. But he ain't no lock just because there are better players around that price. Dunkley, Ashcroft, enough said, skip him. Lock him in. McKenna. Oh, he had some bad offensive plays. He seemed to be missing opponents. Probably a couple years of Gaelic football from Ireland has probably impacted his kicking skills a bit. He's probably a little bit rusty, so whether he's in Brisbane's best 22, I've now started to question. So he's a wait and see for me, but he's not as huge as a lock as I first thought. Wilmot played the wing, looked pretty decent. Won't be a high scorer, but I believe he's in Brisbane's best 22. Now Sydney, I've been cruel and given them all the question marks, but all these guys, I did see their game time, and they actually all made a case to somewhat even be Supercoach relevant. Mills still got disposals, but he played wing, midfield, defense, forward. He's just all over the place. He's a gun player, but I don't know if he's got that midfield role, so he's a wait for me. Maybe an upgrade target in the year. Warner, same thing. He had a bit of forward role. His role wasn't good enough to justify it. Rowbottom, he had a bit more of a CBA role, but his price point's just ugly, and his price point's pretty ugly, and there's just other players we know more about in that price range. Francis Costanas. Once again, I want to give him another week to wait and see. Bloody hell, Oliver, lock him in. Looks good again. Wants another season of it. Maybe he's Brownlow this year. Probably between him and Bond. Then we got Petrarca, Gawn, Grundy, Brayshaw. All had really good cases. I think these two, Gawn and Grundy, I hope one of them get DPP, like forward status, and we can get them. Because I believe they're both going to be 100 average this year. They're still super players. They make Oliver and Petrarca probably like so much better. These two are getting service from these two, and it's just such a crispy combo to see. But I can't really see myself starting Gawn or Grundy just because they are going to steal points off each other. But if one of them gets DPP and gets into that forward line, that's your lock right there. Brayshaw played well. I want to wait and see for Salem, but I don't disagree with anyone wanting to start him. He took lots of marks. He was a good distributor back there, and I think he even, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I did see him even having a CBA or two, and he really wanted to get into that midfield. So defensive midfield role, I don't hate the pick. Chandler McVeigh gave them all themselves a chance in the world to be a debutant. Depending on if they make it, that's up to them, but they played really well, and I don't see a reason why not one of them can make it to the team. Steele, Marshall, I think everyone's locked, but Steele, I liked his game. He looked like he was going 50% that game, but he didn't look, and people were complaining about him not tackling, but when he did tackle, he looked like he was taking the guy down with ease. He laid a nice one on Petrarca, and it just looked like it was effortless. He's not going to tackle every single play he sees in a preseason game because he's just injured himself. He's going to go a little bit light and easy, so In my opinion, he is a lock. I think he was on cruise mode in that preseason game, like old Primo should be. But his role was sensational. He looks good on the Ross line system, and yeah, I'm happy to lock him in. Sinclair and Caulfield. Mm. Sinclair, no. Caulfield, actually, I'll just give that. Sinclair, no. Caulfield, want to wait and see. I want to see if he actually plays in the ones next week. Windhager, I don't hate the pick. He looked really good. He had some midfielders. He had some midfield time. He looked pretty nice. So yeah, I want to give him another week, but I don't hate the pick. Philippou, ooh, he's gonna be a great player someday, but that role, kind of like Flanders, it's just not there. I don't see any reason to start him. He's just doesn't have that good role. Comanche played well. Definitely wants to be in that St Kilda forward line, but he was in the twos and probably is behind in Ross Line's pecking order. But yeah, he's given himself a good chance at debuting. Laird, yep. I just don't have the cash for him, but if you do, he's going to be him and Oliver top two guaranteed. No doubt about that. Took Miller's probably in the top three, but yeah, these two are top two. I'm just going to lock Oliver purely because there's more upside to the pick. Dawson, very solid in that defensive role, looked really good. Sam Berry had a bit of contested work. Looks like he wants another year. He wants another year of improvement. It's added a bit more to his game. He's got a bit more outside game. He looks like he can space out a bit, but he's just a tackling machine. So I don't know if it's his year this year, but I see him as a future I see him as a future option for the later years. Maybe 3 to 5 years, he might be a very, very solid Supercoach mid. There's probably an argument this year, but I just think there's a bit better options. Malira, he's passed the eye test, but his injury history says it's not worth the risk. Brayshaw and Darcy done what they needed to. Shrek I can see as a good option, but just other players in the spot. Young, poor thing. He really, really, really wanted to be a play. He really wanted to be a, player this year for us in Supercoach. Now, a lot of people were optimistic about him, saying, "Oh, Dacos he's gonna be better than Dacos. He's got the role. Kick-ins are sweet." And no, he just looked lost in that game. He didn't look like he just wanted to pitch up a tent, And his role just kind of pushed him to the side. Like he got one kick out, but other than that, he was just kind of cruising in the left pocket. Like he didn't. It looked more like the Luke Ryan and Pierce show. And I think he, like I said in preseason, I'm not going to judge the Primo, but his role, he just didn't look like the main man back there, and that's what everyone was banking on him being. Whereas, Nick Dacos, and I just think his work rate wasn't as exciting as whereas Nick Dacos, he runs around, he screams, he goes, me, 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 me. It's all me, I want the ball, me, I'll run my guts out for 20 metres just to get in front of my opponent. Young's kind of like, yeah, if I get it or not, doesn't matter, so I've got a question mark over him. Maybe if he picks it up later in the year, but definitely not a starter after that performance. Fife, don't hate the pick. Probably can kick a couple bags and give you some cash, but I'm not going to pay 3. In my opinion, he's a cross, but for the general super coach, I don't hate it. Johnson, done some good things. Definitely in chance for an early debut, but I just don't know yet. Rosie, he is still in a team I'm going to make, but he's just... That role, it was awful. He was sharing it with Jason Horn-Francis. He just... and that's the thing I'm saying about pre-season, because as a Primo, he looked good. Unlike some others, he looked actually really good. But his role was awful, and I've given him the question mark, because he is in my team. I want to see him one more week, but... Geez, we need more from him. I want to see him in that midfield role. And he's still got Butters to come back. Like, Butters is crossed off not because he's bad, but because he wasn't playing. So, you still need Butters to come back. I think I want to see what happens with Jason Horn-Francis and Lockie Jones. But, yeah, question mark at the moment. But at the moment, it's in my team. Houston played well, had that defensive role again. But I've seen it 2 years ago, saw it last year. Just feels like a trap. It's like a mouse trap ready to snap at you as soon as you're done. He's passed the ticks in the preseason game, but I think he's a big preseason merchant, this guy, and I'm happy to pass on him. Lysette, if you're looking for a cheap ruck option, which I've got a bit in my mind, he looks good, but I don't really want to pay 420k for what I believe is an 80 to 85 average. If I'm going to pay 420, I'd rather just pay an extra 100k or 150k and try and get a 110 average, save an extra 30 points on field. Or even better, just get a Sava out of Galia for a 60 to 70 point average and save 300k, I just don't see it in the pick. It's either Sava out of Galia or Tim English. Now, Jason Horn-Francis, decent. Probably an F5 option if you don't want Zeeble in there or Bruin, but still pretty raw, bit undersized, and he's got to verse Rosie and Butters, and I know they're trying to fade Boak, but they might put Boak back in if they need him. They've also got Ollie Wines, and now they're trying Lockie Jones and William Drew. Just that poor Adelaide midfield mix is just giving me headaches. So tick from iView in that preseason game, but give it a bit weight on it. Tickle, yeah, looked good again, but the coach came out and said Lyset's number one, so giving him the question mark. Yo, oh my god, lock. He was everywhere. He was a contested beast. I think he laid like 14 tackles in that game, and he was spreading like. I remember anytime he was going for a tackle, I had my hands on my head and like, don't you injure yourself? And no, he did it. He laid all 14 without getting injured. Anyone that's not starting him, I'm sorry. You can just pack your bags and wait till 2024. I don't care if you want to gamble against his injury. You can be one of those people, but I'd rather just lock him in. Because if he's not injured and he averages 100, you've just lost yourself this Supercoach season. Sheed passed the eye test, had a good role. Personally, didn't look like he'd done much with it. He looks like a very slow player in a AFL era that wants a lot of fast players. So passed the eye test, has a role, but he's just, in my opinion, he's just not much of a damaging player. And for Supercoach, it's just not good enough. Allen looked good. Probably can make some cash, but as an on-field option, I don't see it. Cully and Hunt, once again, passed the eye test, had a decent role, but for me, their price point and their position's just not good enough to be in my side. Gimby looked. I've given Gimby the tick, even though he didn't play, but I think he's just a couple players he can slot straight in over Kelly. That's just in my opinion. Noah Long or they had some other players in there just looked a bit sloppy, and I think Gimby can still come to the side like Petruccelli. He's depending on where he plays, but he's still the tick I want to see next week. Hewitt came in pretty late, so not much love for that. And like I said, Noah Long, he still played well, but could probably easily push that. He's more of a taller forward, so Gimby might have trouble, but I still think Gimby gets in next week. Just gotta wait and see. And yeah, that's the preseason review. Geez, that took a while, but for some people you might breeze over this part, and that's fair enough. But for people that didn't watch intra-club matches, this was just kind of my point of view. And I guess the other ones to add, apparently today Tom Green had 50 disposals, albeit against a pretty weak opposition, like some VFL GWS players, but he looked slimmer and he ran out the whole game. Like, people at the game said he just didn't stop. He was just running, had very little benches on the spell. I think GWS recognised he needed tank work, and yeah, they've improved it. So I think he's a huge upward trajectory this year. And also, Ed Richards looked good. The one had in my team, Ed Richards, he looked pretty good. And then the lucky last one I want to talk about is Jack McRae. Rumour has it he was playing nearly 80% midfield. Someone said at the game he was playing 80% midfield. They only spotted him at one CBA in the half forward, and apparently at two of the CBAs he was in the half back. And that's got my ears ringing. So Jack McRae, two half back, one half forward, and then the majority, apparently 80% plus CBAs. Some people at the game said the Caleb Daniel experience wasn't working. He laid a couple good tackles, but he's just getting around the ground. He's just getting worked over, not just because of speed, but just because of height. Like, how's he going to stop a Bontempelli? And most of the comp are transitioning to that Bontempelli midfielder, so he's just, I don't see the Caleb Daniel pick working, and I think a lot of people agree. So Jack McRae probably has that midfield role again, and yeah, pretty exciting news. So now, getting into it, we are actually finally going to get to the fun bit, which is building the team of what I know. First and foremost, from the role of it, I think Tom Stewart is the main man at the Cats. He's got that. He's the distributor. He sits there and he just waits for the ball in his hands. He's D1 for me. I do want Dawson and Sicily, but I'm happy to wait for later in the year. Next one is Elliot Yo. Like I said, he's a lock. He played really well. He's just going to make a lot of money. And even then, if he plays well, he might even be a D. He might be a top 6 defender for 337 6k. So, yep, lock. Jack Bowes, maybe have to give it one more week, but I have seen enough at the moment to say, hey, you're my squad. Goda, he's going to be a tough admission. He's going to be a tough one to take out. He just, in my opinion, didn't do too much. He looks like he's gotten to that wing, and whereas I'm happy to have Darcy Wilmot on a wing for 123k, I'm just not going to pay 192k for someone in that position. They've got too many halfbacks at North Melbourne, and they had Hole in the twos, so I'm happy to throw that pick out the window. The one I will get in is Constable. Like I mentioned before, had that halfback role. Looks pretty decent. Yeah. Now, just because these rookies can still change, it's only February. Still 18 days till the competition. I'm going to quickly do a bulk change. Darcy Wilmot staying. Going to change some of my rookies on here. Going to bring in Mick V. I'm pretty confident he's going to get an early debut for Melbourne. Bring in Cohen. He played really well. Had that nice spin. I think a quick pick up, spin, and kick it, which have resulted in a goal. So he's looking really good. And then this fourth defensive line right now that I've made, it's a lot weaker instead of having Ed Richards and Nick Dacos. So one player that didn't get mentioned on this list was Campbell Chesser. He was on the wing for West Coast. He played he was good in a lot of movement chains. I think they wanted to value him further, so I've got Campbell Chesser here. And what he does is, because he's a mid defender, he can just be swapped with anyone. So if McVee's not playing and Wilmot and Cohen are injured, I can do this. And presuming my midfield stays fit, I can now put Chester on the field. So I'm happy to have a mid defense player here. Actually, there's a second one I want. It's from Carlton. It's the other defender that played really well, Alex Conciado. Now, this will change depending on which of these two play, but at the moment, I've got both of them just because I don't know yet, but they both look solid and both easy options to get in. Changing around. Let's start by first. Bonds, I like Holmes, but just due to my current team, I'm going to have to change him up. Now, Bont, Steele are staying in my squads. They're both going to be top 6 midfielders in my opinion. They're not going to change much, but I've got Clayton Oliver in there. Or maybe top 7 for Steele, but he's definitely top 6. Got Clayton Oliver, looked exceptional like I mentioned, and Jack McRae. Once again, people can really shake Jack McRae off just, for his end of the last year. But I think there's one thing people forget about Jack McRae. He averaged 127 here. Yes, he's done it before. But let's have a look at 2019. Played every single game. So this is 2019. 2020. Just a buy. Played every single game. 2021. Played every single game. And what did he do in 2022? Played every single game. So at the moment he sits there. I am tempted to trade. If Cripps or Parrish twist my arm, I might trade him in. But I think for the 20k, I just have absolute belief in McRae's durability. And if he's really going to get 70%, when he got 74% CBAs in 2021, he averaged 128. If you're telling me he might get 70% to 80% CBAs and even a little bit of halfback minutes, I'm sorry to say, but if that's true, I think he's a top three midfielder. Crazy to believe. Clayton Oliver, McRae, Laird, and then obviously Miller and Bond, but that's obviously a big if. Bevo might stitch us up, so I'm not fully sold. I'm not fully just loading on the pick, but I want to see one more week of it, and if it's true, I'm gonna have him. He's just a consistent pick. He's very durable, and yeah, like I said, bit different from most people, but I really like him as a pick. Now, the next one I got, Tom Green. Like I said, apparently ran out the game really well. Had 50 disposals against once again a really weak opposition, but that's enough to make me jump for joy, and I'm happy to have him go the orange team. Now down here, Grundy, quick swap to. I had Grundy about a month ago, and after watching that game, I think it's pretty simple. Swap the Rowan Marshall, held his own against Grundy and Gorn, and looks like a pretty solid pick this year. Now, this forward line. When I made this team a month ago, I was pretty happy with this. Having Oscar Allen and Ben King, but Oscar Allen has probably made a point, but it's just come back to me like having these tall forwards, they can really hurt you in the year, because if you're relying on them on your field, you can get 100 one week and then you can get a 30 the next. So like most people are changing to now, I am going to be going to 4 primo forward line. Canelio, Rosie, Taranto, and Dunkley. It's pretty solid. And then my next pick, gonna load it up. We've got probably easy just to type him because he's a bit of a scroll away. Radigalia. Pretty solid F6. I don't have to worry about fielding. Let's go Green and Lucky last. Let's go Davey. Which one is this one? Yeah. I don't have to worry about fielding a Green or a Davey. Instead, I can have an intercepting defender at my F6. And yeah, this is the team after the intra-club matches. Of course, we do have one more set of practice matches to go, but I'm pretty happy with the spread at the moment. If I will say this, if Radigalia looks really good next week, and Jack Henry does have a confirmed long injury, I have been playing around a team that kind of looks like this, just a bit of a weird one. I did have it on Thursday, but I talked myself out of it because I thought it was too nuts. I'll put Radigalia here, and it gives me 591k to free up with. Now in my forward line, I will put either it's a 50-50 between Zeeble, or Bruin. Now I do like having the idea of, instead of having like a Radigalia here, I can have a Tanner Bruin or a Jack Zeeble, and both of that is pretty good, because then I can go further on with my team and change Jack Bowes to Nick Dacos. And then furthermore, if someone else presents himself, I can always swap a McVeigh, maybe get a couple more thousand by downgrading Nick Dacos a little bit more to an Ed Richards. I mean, I could get Goda back, but yeah, it's a big ask.